Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I thought today it would be interesting to read over the documents in the Tyler Robinson case. So today we're going to read the probable cause statement. There's two of them. One that was written first that has less information in it, but a few things that we can get from it from the longer one that was made afterwards. Let's get into this. Okay, so this is the original probable cause affidavit. We're going to go over this. This was more charges were added, but these were the first three charges, which was aggravated murder, felony discharge of firearm causing serious bodily injury, obstruction of justice, capital first degree felony conduct. And this was written by Brian Davis, a sworn officer with the Attorney General in the Utah County Sheriff's Office. Or no, I think he actually works for the State Investigative Bureau investigation in Utah, because I think it says that on the second document that we are going to look at. So, I believe there is probable cause to charge the defendant with these charges because the following information was obtained by your affiant from police officers, multiple video recordings posted on social media websites, Utah Valley University campus surveillance cameras, and those who witnessed the incident. So this is where he's getting all the information that he writes in this report. On September 10th, 2025, Charles James Kirk was at the Utah Valley University campus in Orem, Utah for a political event. Mr. Kirk is a conservative political activist who was scheduled to speak at an event in the courtyard area on the UVU campus. The courtyard area is to the west of the Losi Center building. Okay, so the Losi Center building is where the shooter shot from. According to video recordings, Charles was wearing a white t-shirt and dark pants, sitting under a white canopy in a courtyard of the campus facing to the east. The event was attended by hundreds of individuals. Charles was surrounded by people with multiple individuals to his left, right, and rear and front of the canopy. Behind the canopy was a walkway used for access to various parts of the university. Charles was holding a microphone and speaking to a crowd. While speaking into the microphone, a loud gunshot was heard at approximately 1:23 hours, so that's 12:23, and Charles appeared to have been hit in the neck. Blood was seen coming out of the left side of his neck as he fell over to his left. Charles was transported to the Timpanogos Regional Hospital in Orem. Charles was pronounced deceased at the hospital. Investigators reviewed the Utah Valley University surveillance cameras. While reviewing the surveillance cameras, investigators observed an individual on the rooftop of the Losi building on the UVU campus at the time of the shooting. Hereafter, the unidentified individual will be referred to as suspect. Based on surveillance camera footage, suspect appears to be a white male with dark-colored hair, wearing a dark-colored hat, sunglasses, a long-sleeved black shirt with a picture of an American flag and an eagle printed on the shirt, dark-colored jeans, and white-gray shoes with white-colored shoelaces. The shoes appear to be consistent with Chuck Taylor Converse-style shoes. Suspect is also carrying a dark-colored backpack on his back. Suspect walks with a distinct gait. Prior to the shooting, suspect appears to walk with a stiff right leg and at a relatively slow pace. Suspect's ability to bend his right leg appears to be restricted. Investigators were able to track suspect's movements on the UVU campus starting at approximately 11:50 hours on 9/10/2025. So they have his movements from there onward. Like they're tracking him with the camera surveillance center. At approximately 11:50 hours, a UVU surveillance camera first captured suspect walking across a grassy area north of Campus Drive at approximately 800 West. Suspect walked south through the parking lot and approached a pedestrian tunnel that runs up underneath the Campus Drive. So they have all this on footage. We didn't see all of it. We saw some stills when they were looking for him. Remember, they released some stills. And we also have the footage of him jumping down from the roof and running off into the wooded area. But they have footage, more footage than they released. And so this officer is describing what he saw. And that's what's interesting because we haven't seen that yet, but we can figure out what he saw by reading this document. At approximately 11:50 hours, a UVU surveillance camera first captured suspect walking across a grassy area north of Campus Drive at approximately 800 West. Suspect walked south through the parking lot and approached a pedestrian tunnel that runs underneath Campus Drive. Before entering the tunnel, suspect paused at the top of the stairs and pulled out what appeared to be a cell phone from his right pocket using his right hand at approximately 11:53 hours. So at 11:53, they have him pulling out his cell phone, which is interesting. Did he get a text? Like, what was he checking the time? Suspect eventually put what appeared to be a cell phone back in his right pants pocket using his right hand. Surveillance captured suspect making his way toward the Losi Center. At approximately 12:02 hours, suspect was recorded walking on the north side of the Losi building, walking with the same gait as observed earlier. Suspect entered the Losi building through a set of doors on the southeast corner of the Losi Center building. At approximately 12:15 hours, so at 12:15, suspect was observed walking up the stairs that lead to the common area adjacent to the Losi Center building. Hey guys, so it's that time where I need to ask you to subscribe to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, just hit the like, please. If you don't do this, I will be abducted by aliens. Thanks. It's the common area from the rooftop of the Losi Center building. People have went to this location and have showed that you don't have to climb on anything or climb up anything to get to the roof. Like the roofs, they're sort of weird. They're like level with certain walking areas. So all he had to do was just jump over a little railing and sort of drop down. Not far at all. It's just right there. And so that's what that's describing. At approximately 12:17 hours, so at 12:17, suspect climbed over the short wall and appeared to crouch down on the north side of the wall of the rooftop. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect stood up and started running across the roof of the Losi Center building. The notable limp from previous surveillance was absent. Suspect ran to the west side of the rooftop and appeared to scoot along the rooftop area as he got closer to the edge of the roof. At approximately 12:22 hours, suspect laid down in a position consistent with a prone shooting position near the edge of the rooftop and appeared to be facing west in the direction of the courtyard area. Let's sort of like break this down in our minds. The suspect went onto the roof at 12:17. So from 12:17 to 12:22, so for 5 minutes, he's up there. Then after 5 minutes, he actually, what does it say? It says he laid down in a position consistent with a prone shooting position. And in the document we're going to read in a minute, it actually talks about him crawling. It's more detailed. The next one we're going to read is more detailed. This was just the first one to get the ball rolling, so to speak. So, and the notable limp was gone. So now he's taken the barrel out of the pant leg, and the 5 minutes is probably him attaching the stock and the barrel together. The way I understand it is that the scope would have been like attached to the stock or something, because the way the barrel like slides in like that. And if you look at the picture, it is attached to the upper parts that might be the stock. I'm not for sure. I'll have to go look at that again. But I did watch a video of someone with the same gun attaching the barrel and the stock together. It's like two screws. It goes together really fast. And 5 minutes is sort of like seems short, but it's actually kind of a long time when you're actually focusing on it. So during this time, he's put the gun together. And in the document we read next, he actually kind of hides behind a wall for a minute and they can't see him. So I'm assuming that's where he did all that. And then he crawls over there, gets into position, and literally just boom, takes the shot. Very short amount of time, right? If he's in position at 12:22 and then the shot goes off at 12:23, he's like just on it. At approximately 12:23 hours, Charlie Kirk was shot. At approximately 12:23 hours, surveillance shows that the suspect stood up suddenly from the edge of the rooftop and sprinted north on the rooftop of the Losi Center building. Suspect ran to the northeast corner of the Losi Center building and approached the edge of the rooftop. Suspect placed a dark-colored item on the rooftop and proceeded to lower himself off the roof. Suspect dropped off the roof onto the grass below. Suspect ran north near the parking lot to the east of the Losi Center. At approximately 12:24 hours, suspect ran across the Campus Drive Road. So all this is taking place quick. He takes the shot, immediately stands up, immediately runs across the roof. So he gets into position. I'm assuming he's taken out the towel out of his backpack, gets into position, takes the shot, wraps the gun in the towel really quick, jumps up, runs off, jumps off the roof, and is already running across the Campus Drive Road. And we have that footage in the other video before this one by 12:24. Suspect appeared to be carrying an item whose identity is not clear from the surveillance. The area to the north of Campus Drive Road where suspect crossed over consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. Okay, so this is probable cause circumstantial evidence here. They saw a guy on the roof. He's carrying something that appears to be stiff. It's hard to make out because the pixels zoom it out, but you can see in certain frames that it's like a stiff, long thing. Then in the direction that he runs, they find this rifle. So all this like adds up, right, as evidence. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Okay, and I did some deep rabbit holes into this gun. Maybe I'll make like a short video about it. But see this gun? It's a Mauser Model 98. So I think the confusion about the gun and it being from World War II and all that came because that's not written anywhere or in any like public official statement. So I think the confusion that came in was that the text messages mentioned him saying the gun was his grandpa's. Then in the probable cause statement, the longer one, the father mentions that the gun was a gift given to him, was gifted to Tyler. So either the father gifted it to Tyler because the grandfather gifted it to the father, or the grandfather gifted it to Tyler directly. Okay, when you look up Mauser, if you just type in Mauser bolt action rifle, the first thing that will come up is that Mauser bolt action rifles were used in World War II. But it was a different model. It was a K98, and they actually stopped making those after World War II, and they started making these M98, Model 98 Mausers. So this idea that the gun is super old and from World War II is not true. It's just like a blown up, like the media, they do this weird stuff on every case. I followed a lot of cases and a lot of trials, and the media sort of does these kind of weird things. And so I think that's where the confusion comes in. People hear grandpa, people hear that this gun was used in the World War II, and it kind of combines itself together. But these guns, they're still made today. They're not like you could buy a Mauser M98 model right now. And when I was looking into this, because the normal standard Mauser M98 model doesn't look like the gun that was released to the New York Times. And actually, there are models of M98 that do look like it, like styles of M98, but they're called sport. So if I put in sporterized or sport M98 model, there were ones that came up, but it also very closely looks like a Winchester 270 Winchester. I don't know. When I started looking into this whole rifle thing, so many of them, all the models, they all look very similar. And you can change the stock on them and modify them and do all kinds of stuff. And I called a couple gun stores who acted really strange by me wanting to ask questions about guns. Like, it was really weird. I couldn't get much help from the gun stores, but one lady did tell me that there's no way to know what a gun is just by looking at a picture. And then another guy told me that I could send him the picture, and then he never responded back to me. And then I called, and then it was like his employer, and the employer's like, oh yeah, he wants to know what you want to know. And I was like, well, I want to know what he thinks this type of gun is. So I don't know what the confusion is with that, but it was really awkward. So I don't know if I'm going to continue down that road. But point being, it's an M98 Mauser is what they're saying that it is. Okay. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulge, what's this?" So the reason why they have the casings is because it's a bolt action rifle and the spent casing was still inside of it because he didn't eject it. And then I guess it had space for some other ones that were still in there. So one's spent, right? Still inside, and then there were other ones. Is how I understand it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulge, oh wow, what's this?" Inscriptions on 3 unfired casings read, "Hey, fascist catch," up arrow symbol, right arrow symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Obella cow, Obella cow, Obella cow, cow cow." A third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." So there was 1 spent round, 3 unspent rounds with engravings on them. Investigators also discovered a shoe impression on the northeast corner rooftop edge of the Losi Center building. So on the rooftop where he jumped down, there was a shoe impression. Now that shoe impression is going to be linked back to his shoes in trial. That's why they're mentioning the style of shoe here. The shoe impression is consistent with the shoe sole characteristics of a Converse Chuck Taylor shoe. On the evening of September 11, 2025, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at UVU. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. The investigators reviewed additional footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 on September 10th. So now that they have this information, right now that they've heard from Washington County Sheriff's Office, and now they're like, okay, he drives a Dodge Challenger. Now they're going back to the surveillance, right? And so now they notice that at approximately at 8:29 on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo and light colored shoes. So they go back to the footage and they notice him. Now he's in different clothing. So when he arrived at the building at 8:29, the campus, he was wearing different clothes. So he changed into clothes after this when he went back onto the campus when they noticed him at 11:50. Okay? When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with the surveillance images. So he changed back into this outfit or an outfit like it, because like a lot of guys just sort of have a lot of the same colored clothes, etc., etc. And so he might just wear stuff like that. But either way, when they encountered him, he was wearing clothing consistent to what he was wearing before the shooting, not what he was wearing during the shooting. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Now, I think this is written wrong here. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate. I think that's supposed to mean the family member also stated he said, because in the one we read next, it's way more information and more clear. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed the roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he could show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact. Tyler stated a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where the rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also referred to engraving bullets and mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. Based on the evidence detailed in this statement, I believe there is probable cause that Tyler Robinson committed the crimes of aggravated murder by shooting Charlie Kirk in a circumstance that put many around him at grave risk of death, felony discharge of a firearm, and obstruction of justice for moving and hiding the rifle believed to be used in the shooting. By submitting this affidavit, I declare under criminal penalty of the state of Utah that the foregoing is correct and true. Okay, so let's go. So this was the first thing to get the ball rolling. Like, hey, we believe this is the guy. They have to provide this to a judge so that they have reason to be able to hold Tyler Robinson and charge him. Okay, so now we're going to go to the longer statement. This is called it's just called information in the documents. So it's sort of like the first thing that was filed. And it's basically a probable cause statement, but it's longer and has more detailed information. The state of Utah, by and through the Utah County Attorney's Office, charges the defendant with the commission of the following offense. Count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk Under the following circumstance, the defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. So that's interesting. They both Charlie and Tyler have the same middle name, because I think in that previous one it said Charles James Kirk. So notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole. So, and then that charge has an enhancement or an aggravated charge added to it. And this is what it is: victim targeting enhancement. In violation of Utah Code, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James's Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. So he was targeted for political beliefs. That's an aggravating factor. If the trier of fact, that's the jury, finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting her enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or board of pardons and parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. So this comes in at sentencing. So if the jury finds Tyler James Robinson guilty of aggravated murder, they will then decide by checking a box if this aggravated factor also applies. And then that will add to the sentencing consideration by the judge. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child, aggravating factor. So this is actually, so there's two aggravating factors. This is the second one on the aggravated murder charge. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child, aggravating factor. The sentencing judge or board of pardons and parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony in violation of Utah Code. In that on September 10th, 2025, in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm, and the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. And then there's two aggravated factors onto that account. So a victim targeting harassment, once again, because he was targeted. And then violent offense committed in the presence of a child, aggravating factor is also put on that count. So count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code, in that on September 10th in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, concealed or removed the firearm to shoot Charlie Kirk. The conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. So this is, he delayed the investigation by hiding the firearm and concealing it and all that. Those are all things that add up when you commit crimes. There's a wide variety of crimes that they can attach onto it. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. So count 4 is obstruction of justice. Again, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code, in that on or about September 11th, 2025, in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. So it's interesting here that says that this happened on or about September 11th and not September 10th. Count 5, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code, in that on or about September 10th in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item, to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Hey guys, so it's that time where I need to ask you to subscribe to the channel, and if you're already subscribed, just hit the like, please. If you don't do this, I will be abducted by aliens. Thanks! So, tampering with the witness. So the roommate was considered a witness, and he tampered with that witness and tried to get them to delete incriminating evidence. Count 6, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah code, in that on or about September 11th in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned the roommate. And so this is September 11th. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor in violation of Utah code, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson committed criminal homicide in the presence of a child younger than 14 years old, with the knowledge that the child was present and may have seen or heard the commission of a criminal homicide. And then target, the aggravating factors added to this, which is victim targeting harassment. Okay, so now we get into the meat of the probable cause statement. So, Brian Davis of the Utah State Bureau of Investigations, having probable cause to believe that the defendant committed the above listed offense, committed the following evidence in support of the filing of this information. On September 10, 2025, at approximately 2023, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah, which is counts 1 and 2. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11, 2025. Then Tyler James Robinson surrendered to the police at Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun, that's count 3, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle, that's count 4, and told his lover roommate to delete incriminating messages, that's count 5, and not to talk to the police, that's count 6. Children were present at the time of the shooting, that's count 7. The shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2022 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist, famous for these type of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with the audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. The event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. This here says it was announced far in advance. There were flyers and even on a website that it was announced as early as like sometime in August. This whole idea that it wasn't announced, I don't know where people are getting that from, and garnered significant publicity and interest. Consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with the crowd before the event officially got underway. Then approximately at noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and a microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on his right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on 3 sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags and indoor walkways spanning several hundred feet with floor-to-ceiling glass windows which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering questions about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visibly near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is still pending. The UVU surveillance investigation. At the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. So this is really important. So the first person on scene to start investigating this whole thing was a UVU police officer. He heard the shot. He said it sounded like a rifle because of the sound, and then he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open public accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UVU officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof, then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings on the gravel rooftop consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. Police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof, then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual rose and ran across the roof to the northeast. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in its center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he's seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railing off the open walkway onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof, carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. Then he picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. Expanded crime scene investigation. And actually, he picks up his glasses. So he doesn't actually, the rifle he still has in his hand, his glasses fall off when he jumps off the roof, and he actually picks up his glasses. But I only know that because of Gray Hughes' video that we went over the other day. But it looks like at first it could be the gun that he drops, but if you carefully look at it, it's the glasses. They probably figured all that out by now. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believe the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shooting. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. So what that's saying is that this is consistent with the evidence on the rooftop, because when you fire a automatic loading gun, it ejects the casing. But when you fire a bolt action, you have to manually eject. Okay. And he didn't spend any time doing that. He just got up and ran. What the officer's saying here is this is, goes along with the evidence of what happened on the roof, because it all happened so fast, and so he wouldn't have time to pick up a shell casing, and there was no shell casing found. So it makes sense that it was a bolt action rather than an auto loading weapon. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows: fired cartridge, notices bulge, oh whoa, what's this? Second cartridge, hey fascist catch, arrow symbols. Third cartridge, obella cow, obella cow, obella cow, cow, cow. Fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay, LMO. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with Robinson's was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casings, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. So the Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Robinson's mother stated the following to police. So they have gone to the sheriff's office in Washington County, and now the parents are going to be interviewed. Okay, so this is what the mother said to police. On September 11, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick, and that he had also been at home sick on September 10th. So he's not at their house. He's back at their apartment, I'm guessing. Or I don't know exactly where he was, but he wasn't at his parents' house, which is what I originally thought for some reason. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspected shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. So this is the conversation that we heard in the previous probable cause statement, and so it was Robinson that was saying this to like his father or his mother. But if you notice here, this resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father. So him and his father were having heated exchanges, is what this sounds like, about all this change in Tyler's life. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for an event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife, so now this is what the father is saying to the police at the sheriff's office, right? Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle the police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. So, wherever he was, they got him to come to their house. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there's too much evil and the guy spreads too much hate, in reference to Charlie Kirk. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. At Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. The family friend spoke to the police. So now this person is relaying to the officers at the Washington County Sheriff's Office this, and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The family friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. So now the roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting and provided those messages to police. On September 10th, the roommate received a text message from Robinson, which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. So remember when we were all thinking like, how do they know that's what the note says? Are they just relying on Tyler Robinson or the roommate's memory? And so, but apparently the roommate was told to destroy the note, which he did, but he also took a photo of it before he did. And that's how they know what the note said, because it says police found photograph of this note. So Tyler Robinson's roommate took a picture of that note. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You are joking, right?" And then Robinson said, "I am still okay, my love, but I am stuck in Orem a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home." So it says he's going to come home. So he must have went back home. So that'll be interesting to find out what happened during that time. "But I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I'd hoped to keep this a secret till I died of old age. I am really sorry to involve you." "You weren't the one who did it, right?" "I am. I'm sorry. I thought they caught the person." "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Okay, so he drops the gun in that area, and then he was going to go get his car and come back and grab it, but by the time he got back, it was already like too hot. The roommate said, "Why?" Robinson said, "Why did I do it?" The roommate said, "Yeah, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." "How long have you been planning this?" "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by. I think they already have swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. I am wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got my vehicle. I am worried that my old man would do if I don't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? The only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The messages were mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge, OWA on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really sucks. Judging from today, I say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think it was a $2,000 scope. And so do you see all these little dots? There's messages in here that we're not seeing. It's just showing us the relevant information for the probable cause statement, but in court we'll see all of them. Then he says delete this exchange. My dad wants, so this is later. And I don't know, maybe he's at home but Tyler's not there at the moment. My dad wants photos of, or he's driving home, I don't know. My dad wants photos of the rifle, but says grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle. So, see, that right there tells me that the obtained New York Times photo is a photo of the rifle. Like everyone was all up in arms about that. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that that's the rifle, and well, maybe I'll make a video about that. And it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is an off-duty sheriff. You are all I worry about. I'm much more worried about you. Don't talk to the media, please. Don't take interviews or make any comments. If police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Okay, so, and people say that that sounds weird, and I don't know. People, maybe it wouldn't sound as weird if we saw the in-betweens that we're not seeing. But also, there was a video made by Turkey Tom that a close friend of theirs who had been their friends for years and had been in the apartment that they lived in and stuff, reported all kinds of information to Turkey Tom and documentation and pictures even. And that guy told Turkey Tom that this is how they talk to each other. He was like, oh yeah, they absolutely talk to each other like that. So, people are weird. So, the search of Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence. During the search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several targets with bullet holes in Robinson's home. Okay, and then now it's going to go over the accounts again and why they are. It sort of summarizes what they're for. So, count one, aggravated murder, pertains to Robinson's shooting and killing of Charlie Kirk in a manner that exposed others, in addition to Mr. Kirk, to great risk of death. Count two, felony discharge of a firearm, pertains to Robinson shooting Mr. Kirk, knowing that doing so would endanger those in the bullet's path. The shot caused serious bodily injury to Mr. Kirk, ultimately resulting in his death. Count three, obstruction of justice, pertains to Robinson's removal and hiding of the rifle used to shoot Mr. Kirk. Count four, obstructing justice, pertains to Robinson's removal and hiding of the clothing he wore when he shot Mr. Kirk. Count five, witness tampering, pertains to Robinson's statement to his roommate telling his roommate to delete their text exchange that followed the shooting. Count six, witness tampering, pertains to Robinson's statement to his roommate telling the roommate, if any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. Count seven, violence offense committed in the presence of a child, pertains to Robinson's shooting of Mr. Kirk in the presence of children under the age of 14 who were visible at the event. Based upon evidence received from Brian Davis of the Utah State Bureau of Investigations, I have reason to believe the defendant committed the offenses as charged herein. Authorized presentment and filing on September 16, 2025. Utah County Attorney's Office, sworn by Jeffrey S. Gray, Utah County Attorney. So this was who sworn it into filing. Okay, so that was the two documents I wanted to go through today. I find them really interesting. It shows us things the police saw that we don't necessarily have yet. It gives us some indication as to what the parents told the police. It has a lot of details in it that's kind of interesting, and I hope you guys found it interesting. And that's it for today, and see you next time on The Eclectic Journalist.